All right, so we have Alicia here on the podcast slash video, depending on how you're watching or listening to this. Alicia, thank you so much for agreeing to do this show with us this week.
It's awesome. I appreciate the offer. Thank you.
So today we are talking about people doing their network marketing business in the midst of struggles and hardship and tragedy. And the reason I wanted to do this, and we talked about this a little bit before, is I feel like there's a lot of great stories from $1 million earners or $500,000 earners about how they overcame, but we see a lot of people struggle at that $300, $100, $3,000, $4,000 level to overcome a lot of, the real things that happen in life. And I feel like as leaders, we go through stuff, and if we don't turn it into inspiration for others, it's almost like, what was the point of it all?
Right.
What do you think about that?
No, I totally agree. And a lot of times in network marketing, all we hear are the success stories. We hear people say it was hard, but we don't actually get a chance to experience the journey. And so I agree. And I appreciate what you're doing to offer for us, all of us, an opportunity to get a glimpse into what it really takes, some people, to get to that next level.
Yeah. The real life of the, what's the way to say this? Like the middle class of network marketing?
That's a good way of putting it. Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Like, you're doing okay. You're doing pretty well. And then stuff happens, and these are the stories that are not there, but I just feel like they're so much more inspirational than even the ones that go all the way, because it's just so much closer to where a lot of people are. So your story is pretty crazy. But
yeah.
Let's go ahead and just jump in here. Tell us a little bit about what your business was like before this life challenge, and then what life challenges came your way.
All right. So, okay. I started my business in 2013, came out of the gate running. I was super excited. I had been waiting and praying for an opportunity like this. And so when my husband and I agreed to do this, actually we had our very first event on my birthday in 2013, February. And all of a sudden, things just started happening. They started rolling. I was only able to do about 7 to maybe 10 to 12 hours a week, a few classes, several appointments, and whatever I could do in between nap time and my husband getting home from work. So I did what I could when I could, but I put my all into every single moment that we did the business. And then, of course, we were blessed with an amazing woman who lives right down the street from me, who was on my team, and she was blowing and going just as hard as I was. And she had 8 kids at home. I had 4 or 5 kids at home. So we were just going, and the business grew fast. We hit one of the first leadership ranks in about 5 months. She hit right behind me. And then after that, about a year later, we hit a very significant rank in our business, which allowed me to bring my husband home from his job so that he could help me with our 5 children. And so life was pretty darn good. And we saw the road to success coming up really quickly. And 3 days after hitting this significant rank, this is where the life challenge enters. I get a knock on my, go ahead.
You mentioned it was at about the $4,000 to $5,000 level.
Absolutely. We were earning
to make sure that they're understanding what we're talking about here, which is
so we had
amazing for network,
It is for a year and a half, maybe.
Yeah.
We had pretty much matched and gone a little above my husband's income. Now, most people would say you wait until you saved a year. Well, we weren't there. We were like, if we do this for another year strong, we may have to make some sacrifices. We'll be able to triple or quadruple our income. That was our mindset. 3 days later, literally, we got a knock on the door in the middle of the night. It was the U.S. Marshals. They were looking for my son. He was at the time about 21 years old, I believe, 20 or 21 years old. And it was that that moment literally changed our entire lives. He was arrested for capital murder. And and it was out of the blue. Like, this was a kid that we raised to be a good Christian young man, and he was doing all the things right, but there was something wrong, and he took a wrong turn really fast. And so we were all just dumbfounded. We did not know what had happened, and my emotions literally just went out of sorts. In the midst of this little time period when he was first arrested, we started an event in our company that allowed us to travel. So we tried to continue doing that. It was like a challenge. And then we also were featured in the leadership magazine of our company as up and coming, aspiring leaders. And we were able to write an article in that magazine. And so things were still going great. By December of that year, our volume was over 100,000, and our checks were reaching in the 6,000-7,000 range.
Wow.
And so it was still a lot of growth happening, but inside I was falling apart, and I couldn't keep it together. And so in 2015, 2015, we had, of course, FDA compliance that kind of hit our company. Everything was kind of going south anyway. Some things were happening across the board with the company. And I personally started shifting my focus inward. And I couldn't figure out how to deal with my emotions. So everything that was going on with my team that was great started to go the other way. Mm. And I did not know how to control it because I did not know how to deal with what I was dealing with. And it wasn't until about a year later, 2016, when I started to get help, that we saw our business start to go back up and start to rise again. And in the midst of that help, I still did not put in a whole lot of activity. I did the basics to kind of keep it together. And so, those are your first two questions, I guess. I don't want to go too far ahead, but those are your first two questions.
Yeah. So what does your business look like today?
Today we are regrowing. We were able to, for at least a year, really 2 solid years, we've been able to maintain the position that I reached that 3 days before their first life challenge.
Yeah.
We have not grown above it yet. And that was a big struggle for me. Mm-hmm. Because I was thinking, we've been with this thing for 5 years now. Why aren't we at the highest level yet? Why aren't we at this rank that we've been aspiring for yet? And I really, reflection and prayer and thinking and just listening to God, he's kind of showing me that these last 2.5 years weren't about me building my business. They were about supporting the team that he had given us and he had blessed us with. They were more about pouring into them and helping us not fall completely apart. Mm-hmm. And this is actually when last year in 2017, April, that's when I signed up for your program, the Direct Sales Foundation. And that was when my son's trial was happening. It was a month-long trial. And through that trial, I would go to trial in the morning and I would listen to your program with my coach in the evening. And it was crazy trying to get it. I don't even think I finished it. I had to go back through and finish it later. But I wanted to do something to keep me going in the middle of everything that was happening. And Tasha, life was not over. It wasn't finished. It kept hitting us. And right after my son's trial, he was convicted and sentenced to life without parole. And it's hard. It's really hard. Right after that, my husband's health went south. He had been having some digestive issues, and we didn't know. We were, handling them with our products, and the doctors couldn't figure out what exactly was going on. And then a few months later, through an emergency phone call and an ambulance, he was whizzed to the hospital and went into emergency surgery and spent almost 30 days in the hospital. And here I am at home with 5 kids. My oldest son is in prison now, and my world is literally just shaking and falling apart. And I hear in the midst of that, just keep going. Just keep going.
So obviously you went and got a real job.
No.
I'm just kidding.
I'm crazy like that. No. Why in the world would I do that? I have so much belief that, and maybe that's what I should have done. Maybe.
No way.
I don't think so, though. I think that would have taken more life out of me to do that. I think that would have stripped all of the hope that I had that this business could work.
Mm-hmm. So I just think you're amazing. And hopefully it's okay that I share this, that when we started, I said, man, you were so fired up on that webinar that I did for you. And I was like, whatever happened to her? And like, now here we are a year later.
Yeah.
And this is what happened.
This is what was happening. Yes.
Yeah, that's a legitimate question. And so I just want to say, I mean, you're like, this is amazing that you have persevered, held your rank, been able, so you can still support your family in the midst of this.
Yeah, and it's tight. It has been tight sometimes, but we're back now on that growth incline.
Yeah. So what did you do during all of this insanity to keep your business first maintained and now growing?
Well, I think the first thing that I did is I had to realize what wasn't working for us. And that's when we started to rethink the way we did classes, and we started to rethink the way we were chasing people with trying to get them to be a part of our, to use our product or to be a part of our business. And so we shifted our priorities there. And, some people will say that it was management mode, but a lot of it was personal management during that time.
Mm-hmm.
This speaks to the magnitude and the blessing of passive residual income and the industry that we're in. There's that fly.
Yeah, it's okay. Handle it, girl.
It's my nuisance, right? But that speaks to that, to where we are, the industry that we're in, and the power of network marketing. Because I did the basic. I did the 2 contacts a day. It was always in my mind. It was ingrained in me early on. 2 contacts a day, 2 follow-ups a day, talk to 2 people, reach out and just continue to do something in my business every day. So I did that personally. I focused on personal growth. I extended my personal growth to our team because they were going through things too. We had 2 or 3 people who had 4 or 5 deaths in 1 year in their family. We had custody battles and divorces and all kinds of things, cats almost dying in our team that were going crazy. So everybody was getting hit. And all I felt I needed to do was continue to pour into them to seek God and to build themselves up personally and to do what they can. It wasn't a season of fast growth. It wasn't a season of a lot of activity, but we did what we could to maintain. I think everybody did. It wasn't just me. Mm-hmm. And so it was, to some people, it looks like management mode. To us, I think it was survival. It was, we're going to do what we can and we're not going to worry about the rest. And I think in doing that, it created a sense of stability. It created a sense of loyalty. And that one's almost making me tear up right now. I can feel it coming. So I need your robotness.
Yeah. I just keep crying. We'll just carry on through. I mean,
right. But I feel it coming. So, a sense of loyalty and that we can really do this. And so you find out in those times who's with you and who's not with you. Mm-hmm. And the people who decided to stick around, we encourage each other. And now we're on that, finally back on that growth decline. So personal development, doing the basics and supporting each other.
Yeah. I love that. Mm-hmm. A couple of things you mentioned earlier. Maybe I'll play this podcast second after the panel because I feel like I have to bring some stuff up. So yesterday I interviewed 3 ladies. They were all together, right? Because all the scheduling. And there was a few things that really showed up as themes, and you mentioned them as well, even though you're not with them.
Okay.
So you said you really stuck to the basics, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Another thing is that, what else did I write down here? You asked for help. Tell me a little bit more about that, because one thing that I have noticed is the people that struggle don't ask. And specifically you said, I wrote it down exactly what you said. I started to get help, and that's when we started to rise again.
Yes.
Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. So my struggle was emotional, and it was professional. I'll say a professional struggle, if that makes sense. Um, so the emotional side of it was dealing with everything that I was going through. And so I sought the help that I needed to get to deal with me, to help me. But then on the professional side of it, I knew that I was in a place that I had never been before in my business. And I did not want to lose myself, and I did not want to lose what we had built, even though we did have some decline. But I didn't want to lose everything that we had built because of a challenge. And to me, a challenge is momentary. It's not forever. And so I knew that we would get through this, but I just didn't know how. And so I listened to podcasts. I enrolled in trainings, your training. I enrolled in another social media marketing training. I said, if I can't go out and teach classes because I'm having to be here with my kids, my husband's sick, I have to take care of him, then I'm going to figure out how to do this online. I sought the help that I needed to do something. I didn't just say, okay, this is not working, let me quit. And again, there may have been moments, I don't even remember, Tasha, a moment when my mind told me I needed to quit. It said it was hard. It said, I don't know if I can, but I immediately say, but I have to.
Yeah.
This was the only card on the table.
Right.
And so we took away our security when my husband came home, and he could have gone and gotten another job, but now he's dealing with his own health challenges. We didn't have insurance. We didn't have anything. And so I said, you know what? I'm not giving up on this. I can grow through this, and I can help somebody else eventually. I'm still waiting on the eventually, but I can help somebody else eventually.
Oh, no, I think we got it right here. So this is not meant to be, self-serving for me. This is really more about your story, but you've mentioned this 2 times. So I feel like we should talk about it a little bit. We have a lot of people that are like going through this life challenge. I'm going to train after it's over.
Nope.
Tell me, this is certainly not where I was thinking this podcast would go, but you've mentioned it several times. So tell me your thoughts to those people who, we don't want to be insensitive to their circumstances, but good God, I don't know how much crazier it could get than what you're talking about. But what are your thoughts about that?
And I had people who, while they were going through their challenges on our team, and I would say, hey, how many people have you talked to today? Did you beat your minimum? And they wouldn't like it. They didn't like it. I felt like this was kind of an escape from my mess. And all that we do is serving other people. It's all about serving other people. And if I can serve someone else, if I can pray for someone else, if I can give someone else something that's going to change their health, if I can lift somebody else up, then maybe there's somebody out there that's going to lift me up. Maybe it'll come reciprocity, the law of sowing and reaping. Maybe it'll come back around to me one day. And so I felt like if I stop and focus just on me, I am going to crack up.
Yeah.
I don't want to. I've always heard that, whatever you focus on, that's what you bring more of into your life. And so I wanted to focus on the good. I wanted to focus on where I could go, who I could become, what I could do after this storm was over. And for me, and a part of it is still going on because my oldest son is locked up. So that's going to always be that tear there. But even through that, I have to minister to him to bless somebody where he is. And I have to minister to others to bless somebody where they are. So in my eyes, it's all about you train before the game. And sometimes you have to train really hard through rough circumstances so that when you get in the game and there are rough circumstances within the game, you shine and you don't fall apart.
Yeah.
And so that, that's my that's my philosophy, I guess you could say, is that I wanted to stay in the game. I didn't want to fall out of the game or get kicked out or get benched. I wanted to stay in the game. And so the only way I knew to do that at that moment was to train and do the very best I could, do the minimum.
That's awesome. I'm on a little rager these days about the difference between playing not to lose and playing to win.
Yeah.
I imagine you have some thoughts on the difference between the two.
Well, I do. Playing to win, playing not to lose, to me, it can be a good thing sometimes, and it can be a bad thing sometimes. I think it can be a good thing when you are playing like I was in that season of life, to stay in the game, to not completely fall out of the game. And you're kind of just doing patchwork, and you're keeping the pieces of the puzzle together. But then you have to ask yourself, when am I going to stop patching it up and start healing it? When am I going to start now taking what I've learned and giving it all I've got and moving forward with what I've learned? And I think that's where I was last year. At the beginning of last year, 2017, I knew we were coming into my son's trial. It had been 2.5 long, arduous years of going back and forth to the jail to see him. My husband was starting to get sick. All of these things were still up on me. But I said, you know what? One day this will be over, and I want to win. And that's when I believe I started to play to win. I started to get my mojo back. But for a while, I was playing not to lose. I was just surviving. And I think, again, there's a good part of that. But if you stay in that phase too long, because that phase is really rooted in fear. It's rooted in, I don't want to lose this. I don't want to miss out. I need to protect this. And some of that is where I have been this year, where I'm saying, okay, my husband's okay. My son is secure. He's in not a good place, but he's in a place. My kids are okay.
Not much you can do about that.
Not right. Not much I can do. So now, Alicia, move forward. Move forward. And so I don't know if that's your philosophy. I haven't heard your podcast on that yet. But I think that for me, it can be good and bad.
Yeah. No, I love that. I mean, it's something that I'm just currently exploring. I read this book, and maybe I'll send a copy to you for doing this podcast.
Thank you.
How winning works. And it like that just phrase, it's like hit me like a ton of bricks, because, you know, when we met, like, it was playing to win. Like, it was just like, we were just this crazy company. Like, where did we come from? What happened? And then all of a sudden things just got so huge that at some point it turned into, for me, playing not to lose.
Yeah.
And that was never intentional, right? It was not like but it was something that a couple of weeks ago just really, really struck me. And the difference between those two feelings, or that mindset, and something you just said just stood out to me. So I figured you had some wisdom and some thoughts around that. So as we wrap up here, Alicia, for people that are going through their own life challenges, you know, maybe it is a severe illness of their own, maybe it's one for their family, maybe it's a death in their family, maybe it's a family member who's going through something very, very difficult, like what you imagine. I mean, there could be a multitude of things that people run into. What advice would you give to them?
Every day, show up to serve somebody else. Number one, serve someone else. Seek to serve, because it's through service that we find success. And that success may be emotional success. It may be financial success. It may be, you know, increased wisdom. It may be a new friend, but seek to serve someone else. And the second point, so that's the first thing, seek to serve someone else. The second point is, don't let your business become collateral damage. Think about the dreams and the goals you had when you first started this business. Those are still real, very real for you, even though life is hard. There's never a promise that life is going to be easy. So think about why you started this business, the energy and the excitement that you had when you started this business, and then decide that you're not going to let it go. You're going to do something every day to pour into your business or someone who is on your team. And then number 3, just don't quit. And of course, that's always the number 3 in everybody's 3 points is just don't quit. Keep going, because if you, and I see, I've had to decide, Tasha, that the last 2.5 years for my business don't count. They don't count. It's okay. They were playing not to lose. We were there surviving. We were in survival mode. So I can only count the first 1.5 years of my business as true business activity.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm still a baby in a sense. So now I get to reignite this fire and this passion in me and say, okay, well, I've only been doing this thing for 1.5 years. I need to move forward. So keep things in perspective. If you need to pull away and take care of life, that's fine. But now reshift your priorities, reshift your perspective, change things that you need to change, get into coaching programs like Direct Sales Foundation, and then my next one is the Leadership Foundation, and move forward and don't stop.
Yeah,
that was about 7 things. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's it's all good. I think what stood out to me about what you just said is about momentum. And momentum is really hard to pick up. And what I love about your story is, despite all the challenges, you were able to maintain, right? It's like how much gas it takes to start a car versus cruise.
Yes.
And so even if you have to cruise during that time, you use a little bit of gas, not nearly as much to restart. But if your car stops and then you have to start again, right? Like, that's just so much harder, especially if your tank is empty, right? If your tank is empty, it's a lot easier to cruise than it is to stop and then restart, because if your tank is empty, it will restart.
Yeah. And I agree. Can I say one more thing?
Please.
Do not compare yourself to anybody else. Not to me, not to the person who just hit the rank you wish you were hitting, not to the person who got there super fast. Don't compare yourself to anybody else. Your journey is your journey, and you have to decide how much is worth it to get there, and be grateful as you do arrive there. So I try my best not to get caught up in, I let their successes become my energy, not my depletion. I let it become my energy. I let it drive me to continue. If they can do it, so can I.
Right on. I love that. Well, let's go ahead. Let's end there, because I don't think there's anything I could say. Alicia, thank you so much for all of your wisdom and being vulnerable and authentic with everyone here. And I'm just so grateful for our conversation today. You have also inspired me. So I hope.
Thank you, Tasha. Thank you. I appreciate this time. You're awesome. Your entire team is awesome. Your Facebook group rocks. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.